According to a recent study, 52 million Americans, aka 1/3 of the workforce, earn less than $15 per hour. So if you work 40 hours per week, that's a salary of around $31,000, right around the poverty line. How do people, most commonly women, end up trapped in this kind of low-wage cycle? Today, I'm joined by the authors of Getting Me Cheap: How Low-Wage Work Traps Women and Girls in Poverty. Lisa and Amanda interviewed 250 low-income mothers across the country over 10 years in order to understand, and a clear pattern emerged. They wrote, "Many of the women we interviewed who worked in low-wage retail, service, and care occupations traced a path that began in a working poor family and led to a no-future job. These women often became responsible for taking care of younger family members very early in life, and then their own development and advancement took a back seat to meeting the basic needs of their struggling families. The belittling of care work in general, whether it's performed by a wealthy stay-at-home mom or a low-wage care worker who's almost always female, contributes to the misguided view that this work is not valuable." And this is also where they've heard a common line of suspicious questioning. If the work's so bad, why don't you do something else? Why don't you go to college? Over the 10 years Lisa and Amanda kept up with these women, they didn't meet any mothers who had moved out of the low-wage labor market without more educational attainment, certification, or job training. But it's not as simple as merely working more or pursuing more education for a few reasons. The primary limiting factor many of these single mothers faced was childcare. Here's Amanda and Lisa on one young woman they met named Alania.
I was interviewing her because she's a family childcare provider. And she then mentioned, almost as a throwaway comment, she mentioned the fact that she had become a childcare provider because she decided she had to switch from being a medical technologist, actually an ultrasound tech, because there were children in her family she needed to take care of. And when I pursued that point a little, she actually then said, well, the children I'm taking care of now, or the children that she took in, it was the child of her brother. And then she said, because she'd adopted her brother when he was 14. And then she mentioned, and my sister too, who was 12. And I said, how old were you when you adopted your brother and sister? And she was 19 at the time. And she didn't go into detail, but she said there was no one else. There was no one else to do it. And so she stepped up. She then took all these courses in order to open up a family daycare to put her nephew, her brother's baby in, and actually ultimately some other children in the family. And you make about $30,000 a year doing that. But she had just come to the conclusion that there was no other way to protect her family.
Many of the women in our book that we spoke to turned to at-home childcare, not because it was their passion, not because it was what they were trying to pursue for a career, but just because outside childcare is so very expensive.
Lisa and Amanda heard story after story about the issues with certification for childcare subsidies because their wages, even while working full-time at an average of $10 per hour, are not high enough to pay for childcare so they can work. These women require government assistance, which comes with a host of regulations that require them to be consistently recertified. In many cases, working mothers were required to provide proof of at least 20 hours per week of paid labor to qualify. That often meant women who were attempting to work so they'd qualify for childcare while getting their degree and taking care of their kids were sleeping as little as 4 hours per night and piecing together care arrangements to cover their evening shifts. Another common critique is, why would you bring a child into a situation when you don't have any money? But the issue is, we treat trying to support children while making minimum wage like it's a personal failing or an individual choice gone wrong. What we ignore is that when 1/3 of American laborers find themselves in this position, something of this magnitude is the result of large-scale policy decisions, not millions of Americans individually failing, even if personal or individual problems exacerbate the circumstances.
The main problem that they ran into throughout their lives in terms of being moms was that they make poverty wages and we don't provide them with the supports to help them keep their families healthy and safe.
There was another interesting pattern that emerged. The care work within a poor family was disproportionately gendered.
Globally, we know women are doing 78% of all care work, right? So that's like in communities, not just parenting, but taking care of community members, parents. It includes housework. The not valuing of care is actually at the center of the problem for the women that we spoke with. And unless we address that, I don't really think we're going to get anywhere.
Elder care, home care, the lowest paid people in nursing home care, and then child care and domestic labor in general. Altogether, we're talking about millions and millions of jobs that really support the ability of the rest of us to do all the things that we need to do.
Plus, there's the issue of the benefits cliff. Many of these low-wage workers subsisting on less than $20,000 per year receive Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits for food, also known as SNAP, childcare subsidies, and rent assistance, and the thresholds come with sharp cutoffs. Some women Lisa and Amanda spoke with had to turn down a raise because it would have nudged them over the income line, and a small wage increase meant a far larger loss in the form of childcare or food aid. One woman told the story of being offered a raise that would increase her income by $50 per month, but if she were to accept it, she'd lose $300 in SNAP benefits. Another woman said, "It makes you seem like you want to stay on welfare, but for many, it's just a simple cost-benefit analysis." Amanda and Lisa astutely captured the crux of the issue as the system is designed today. Quote, "Small gains that could gradually stabilize a family become grounds for pulling out the rug." So what do we do about it? Amanda and Lisa unearthed a few models that can help. The first was Julie's Family Learning Program in South Boston. Now, this center is designed to meet the needs of mom and child together. It's a total care family approach that provides basic adult education, job and college counseling, tutoring for moms and kids, family counseling, and infant and toddler childcare with a Montessori preschool on site. This type of program helps break the cycle. It provides a way out. The second is looking at free county or statewide programs like Preschool for All in Multnomah County, Oregon, which uses funding from personal income taxes. This gives parents a chance to find meaningful employment without the stress of securing childcare subsidies for sometimes unreliable care. There was also a proposal in Congress to fund early childhood education for low and middle income children back in 2021, but it was ultimately stripped. And it probably goes without saying, but it's worth examining why workers who labor for the largest, most profitable companies in America are being paid $10 per hour. Because if a government subsidy has to fill in the gaps so Walmart workers can afford to feed and shelter themselves, that means that our tax dollars are subsidizing Walmart profits. I asked Amanda and Lisa for their final take on what needs to change on the individual, workplace, and policy levels.
So like on the individual level, does someone help with childcare? Does someone help with domestic work? How do you pay them? How do you handle, days off if you're sick, if they're sick? What are policies like for childcare, for parental leave, and how do they affect different people in your workplace? Is there activism around that? Kind of calling for fair treatment for all moms or similar, benefit package for all moms. And then, we talked about some of the policy level, but certainly supporting public policies like universal childcare, paid parental leave, and with a close eye to how they impact childcare workers.
This is a feminist issue. It's a human rights issue. It's a socioeconomic issue that ultimately impacts everyone in our society to some degree. And in the richest country in the world, we can and should do better. And if you want to hear the full deep dive episode of this week's Money with Katie show, click the link in the description of this video. And before we go, comment below what you thought the most interesting part of our conversation was. And remember to like and subscribe to our channel.